to call the meeting to order. If everyone would please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I do want to give notice that we had an brief executive session prior to this meeting to discuss personnel issues. I want to open the meeting up with a general public participation. You're welcome to talk under the specific agenda item if you'd like, or if you want to get it over with, you're welcome to come up and speak now. 5 minutes, just give your name and your street.
Angus Ronald McGilvery, 120 South Bellevue Avenue. As a follow-up to my comments at the April 14th Board of Commissioners meeting, residents have still not seen a plan for improvements in areas adjacent to the 60 West development that was part of the conditional use approval. Specifically, trees and landscaping along Bellevue Avenue side of the AT&T building is one improvement requested by residents. This is an important improvement that will contribute to making the street more attractive and comfortable for walking, can increase perceived safety on the street, and improve air quality for people walking from the Bellevue Avenue Municipal Parking Lot while visiting the Wayne Business District. People are more likely to walk further and more frequently on a tree-lined street as the environment feels more pleasant and distance seems shorter. After speaking to the developers and to Township staff, there seems to be a lack of clarity about who will make sure this improvement is made. So I request that before the final development plan for the 60 West development is approved tonight, that residents of South Bellevue Avenue are assured by the commissioners of their commitment to landscaping improvements on the east side of Bellevue Avenue at the AT&T building.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, John Aiken, 116 South Bellevue Avenue. I just have a question. Will I be able to speak after the 60 West item?
Yes, you'll be able to speak during the 60 West discussion.
I can speak then. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Hello, Susan Fahey and Eleanor Ball from Eleanor Ball from Lindsay Circle in the Inverary neighborhood of Radnor Township. And we're here just to set some context for the upcoming presentation, which is the WPP noise report. Number one, we're grateful for the commitment that has continued on this problem. And as a neighborhood and as neighbors, we remain committed to trying to be communicative and collaborative so that we can truly find a solution to this. We believe there is one, and we believe we can find it. Number two, we also believe that the long-term solution that has been discussed but really hasn't been implemented, but we think there's progress to that end. We're not totally sure of the details, but that the long-term solution is to move the event with all bands, DJs, or electrified music indoors.
Also, we just wanted to commend the folks who came out for the test that occurred on Friday, and to note that there was some hopeful progress, we think, that kind of came out of that experience, but also that we recognize that it wasn't the lived experience that we've had on Saturday nights and Friday nights when there are events happening without the background noise of cars and that sort of thing that might have made a difference in that test. So anyway, we're grateful that it happened, but we do want to stress the importance of continuing to do those tests during real events. And also with the large events kind of being the focus, we also want to make sure that we're looking at those smaller events that do have live music, sometimes outside, and make sure that that's a part of the whole picture as we're taking a look at this situation.
Thank you.
Right? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there any item commissioner or member of the public would like to pull from the consent agenda? Seeing none, could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? So moved. And a second? Second by Commissioner Agnew. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, I'm going to make a motion to approve the consent agenda, or it's already been made. All in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. Okay, we'll move on to the business agenda. Item 3A is a caucus, a preliminary/final minor subdivision plan for 245 Willow Avenue, subdivision of one lot into two lots, each with an existing residential dwelling. So there will be no vote on this, and we have the applicant here?
Yes.
Wonderful.
I'm sorry. Did you say there won't be a vote tonight?
There won't be a vote. It's just a caucus tonight. It's,
Oh, okay.
we're talking.
Okay. So
Okay?
I'm not familiar with that process, but
Ah.
shall we just explain what we're doing? Or
Yes, that would be great.
Okay. I'm John McDonald and
Bridget McDonald.
Bridget McDonald. We have been residents of Radnor since 2001 at 245 Willow Avenue, and raised our children through the Radnor schools. In 2016, we were able to purchase the other half of the house, 247 Willow Avenue, and then proceeded to combine them into a single property. Unfortunately, Bridget and I have decided to divorce, and in order for Bridget to be able to stay on the block, to afford it, we're dividing the home back into two properties. So that's the intent or the reason for what we're doing. So we're essentially just simply trying to return it to what it was. I think that we've gotten all the approvals that we were needed for the zoning and for planning. Yeah, I guess we're here to answer any questions that you may have.
Let's see if there are any. Any commissioners' questions, comments? No? Any staff comment?
Yeah, Madam President, it's a pretty clean review letter at this point. There are a few waivers that you would have to approve at the next meeting, but no, it's a very simple subdivision.
Okay. So what will happen essentially is this will come back onto the agenda and for a vote next time.
Okay.
Okay?
Okey-doke. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Item 3B is a caucus also, a preliminary final minor subdivision plan for 221 South Aberdeen Avenue, a subdivision of one lot into two lots. One of the lots has an existing residential dwelling. Do we have the applicant here? Okay. Oh, thank you, Mr. Norsini. Thank you. I just introduced you and you missed it, but, so we're just here to caucus tonight, and,
Yeah.
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 you know the drill.
So Patrick Spellman with Site Engineering Concepts. We're here for a minor subdivision at 21 South Aberdeen Lane Avenue, right down the road here at the corner of Aberdeen and Ivan, the corner property. The intent is to subdivide into two lots. The remaining house stays on one lot, and then a new single-family dwelling would be built on the second lot. We do have we resubmitted today to respond to some outstanding review comments from the township engineer and the transportation engineer. Fairly minor stuff, but some things that I do want to point out to you is the need for waivers that the township engineer had in his letter. What we're looking at, by the way, is the plan set that was submitted with the original application. I'm going to grab the one that was submitted today because it has the waivers written on it.
So, Madam President, since we just got these today, if I may interrupt, we won't be able to review them prior to the next meeting. We've talked to the applicant. They will probably be before you 2 meetings from now for final.
Okay. So the second meeting in May.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
we have back-to-back meetings in May, so.
Alrighty. So the first waiver that we would request is sort of I shouldn't say standard waiver of the existing features within 500 feet. We have an aerial on the front page that shows what we can show in the area, with street names. It's a little tough to see on that, but we have the stormwater, sewer items, everything that we could find that we could put on the aerial to meet as much of that as we can. So to the extent necessary, we would be looking for a waiver for those items that aren't there. The second waiver is for sidewalks. So as I said, we're at the corner of Ivan and South Aberdeen where it comes up the church, up here at Conestoga Church Road. As you know, this gets very steep. This is at best a dangerous intersection. So we're proposing to ask for a waiver for sidewalks because it just seems that it would be silly and cruel to bring somebody up to this point and abandon them. Also part of that is curbs. We intend to match the existing curbs, which are rolled asphalt. And to the extent necessary, we would ask for a waiver of the township specifications if rolled asphalt is not on it. And the last thing was right-of-way. So Ivan is a 60-foot right-of-way, which meets the requirements for the township. South Aberdeen is a 50-foot right-of-way, which should be 60. So we are proposing another 5 feet to provide the 30-foot half right-of-way on our side of the road. So there would be a 5-foot offer for dedication of right-of-way along Aberdeen. I think that's hits the highlights. This is a potential footprint. We designed stormwater for what we thought would be a reasonable house. We, of course, would come back for the grading permit and any shade tree requirements if for the final house configuration. I think that's about it.
Okay. Commissioner, questions?
Just to go back, so you're saying that you're required to do sidewalks?
Correct. So it's a minor collector, and they are required sidewalks. Yeah.
Steve, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
I'm asking Steve.
Commissioner, so Mr. Spellman does bring up some good points, and so I'm a very big proponent of sidewalks and have been told sometimes that going too far, but on this street, to install sidewalks beyond where this development is would be pretty invasive and very intrusive to the homes there. So Mr. Spellman brings up a good point. We're going to bring people out to an intersection which it does not have pedestrian access, right? There's no ADA curb ramps, there's no crosswalks. Doesn't mean you can't cross there. It means there are no accommodations for you to do so. So in this one case, I don't really have an issue with not installing the sidewalks on this project.
Yeah, no, I appreciate those thoughts, because, I mean, that's not the intersection where we want to be bringing pedestrians. I mean, what are they gonna do? They're not crossing there, so I would agree that I would not want to see sidewalks in that area.
Any further commissioner questions? Commissioner Riley?
Sorry, on the sidewalk part. Say instead of going that way, going the other direction, are there sidewalks when you're heading, say, towards the center of Wayne? If you go down Aberdeen, at what point are there sidewalks?
There are not. I don't know where exactly they start. It might be right at St. Catharines. It might be the block before St. Catharines on the other side of South Aberdeen. I know there's a walk, what we'll call a walking bench pathway on the grass along here that people seem to maintain to try to give somebody some ability to get off the road if somebody was walking there. But I don't think there's anything formal for several blocks. So, past that's Upland Way, going down Aberdeen towards 30. That's Upland Way, and I can't picture any. My kids go to St. Catharines, so I'm up and down the road a lot, or used to be anyway. And there was no sidewalks.
Did they walk to
They
St.
did not.
Catharines? They did not? You drove them?
They did not. We lived too far to walk.
Well, the 200 block has sidewalks.
Say that again,
The
please.
200 block has sidewalks. It does.
So that would,
Right, it has-
yeah, so that is I think that's 32 along St. Catharines. I'm not sure. And if it's past St. Catharines, it would go up to Upland. Is that on the other side of the street?
So
Sorry.
you're heading, what direction would that be? We'll say that's south, sort of.
Yes.
There are sidewalks along the 200 block. You pass Upland, on the left-hand side, there's still sidewalks.
Okay.
Okay. You cross over that, now I'm drawing a blank, but there are sidewalks.
If I may again interject, Commissioner, so if it pleases the commissioners to have sidewalks, we can have the developer create some type of a turnaround before they go out into the intersection. Like a dead-end sidewalk. There's one on Conestoga Road as you go towards the bridge leaving this building. We've had them put in a 5-foot circle or 6-foot circle, diameter circle. So it says, stop here, but you can turn around even if you're in a wheelchair and go. So if the thought is for future sidewalks, to the commissioner's point, they could still install them.
That section of Aberdeen's very narrow, and I don't know that,
Agreed.
as you called them, an invitation to walk here, it's not great, but then again, when you cross there over Pembroke, and you're on Aberdeen, it's hard to walk there. It's hard, you have to take your life in your hands, frankly. So, I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I'm a big in favor of sidewalks, but I agree with you. I'm not saying that section actually is conducive to sidewalks.
So I guess the question is if someone builds a house on this sort of triangular lot, I'll call it, would they want to be able to walk on a sidewalk into Wayne?
And live, yes, they would. They would want to. I mean,
Well, I think if you were
it's a
going to
little
live,
treacherous.
you'd want to be on a...
It's treacherous to not, to try to walk from that block of South Aberdeen to get to sidewalks.
But there is I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah. There is the green, what I call a green bench. It's just the vegetated area along the curb that is, for the most part, clear of trees and bushes. And as you get further down, you can see that people, at least from blanking on the name, Orchard Way on down, walk along this side of the street along that bench to get into Wayne. And these folks could certainly do that here. There's enough room on this grass stretch for somebody to walk down into Wayne.
But then there's enough room for a sidewalk.
Sidewalk requires a verge, and this is the verge, basically. And then, so either something's got to give, the sidewalk or the verge.
Can I ask you a question? So you're doing this for Rockwell, correct?
Correct.
Aren't they going to put two houses right there on Ivan, right on the back of that?
On Askin?
Yeah, I'm sorry,
so-
on Askin, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah,
on Askin.
on Askin, there's another application into the township for taking a one lot and splitting into two for two single-family homes. It's a vacant lot on Askin right now. Askin,
Well, it's actually owned by the property on South Aberdeen.
it is. The same owner owns these two
So this
lots.
is really going to be three houses on that lot. Is that right, or am I wrong about that?
Well, legally, it's two different lots. This is one property of its own.
Yeah.
One tax map parcel number, if that's the way you want to think about it. And then the Aberdeen property is a property on its own, happens to have the same owner, but it has its own tax map number and is assessed independently of the other property.
I have a question about what's currently on the new lot. I've got it up on the map. Looks like there might be a tennis court. Is there
Right
something
here,
already
there's a
in?
tennis court.
So is the footprint of the house about the size of that tennis court?
Pretty much. These are slopes showing here. This is where the tennis court is sitting. Yeah.
And so how big would that second, the smaller lot, the one with the courts now that will be a house?
The area of it? Yeah. So the net area is 47,845.
And is the plan for the developer to sort of build this and these other two kind of at the same time? Will be construction kind of going on at the same time?
Yeah, I don't know, quite honestly. Mr. Lingo isn't here. Whether they happen at the same time or it just depends on.
But I understand that they're
Right.
taxed separately, they are separate parcels, but is it sort of the same development? It's just got a house in the middle of it that's already there.
Yeah, no, I think they would be all three would actually be separate building areas, separate limited disturbances, because my belief is, and again, this is for Mr. Lingo really to answer, but I get the impression that these lots would be sold. There would be a custom house for each lot, and they will be on different timelines when each one actually comes up for. By the time they're sold and go through an architect to get their footprint squared away and get their grading permit, it'd be quite a miracle, actually, if they all came together.
But right now, the deed has just this lot that you have outlined.
Correct.
Okay.
So the deed for this property is just this.
Right.
The Aberdeen, the Haskin lots are this adjoiner right here.
Okay.
So they do share a couple smaller lines right here in the corner.
But they're not on the same deed.
They are not on the same deed. They are
So
completely
they're
separate
part of the
tax map numbers.
And 221 South Aberdeen, the house that sits there currently, nothing's happening to that house, no improvements, no.
It's not part of so I don't, as far as I know, nothing's happening. We're not proposing any development or anything on this property. Whether the current owner will then go do something, I can't say. But as it stands, that's what we're looking at.
Okay, any further questions?
Mr. Norsini, what's your opinion on the curbs?
Actually, I was going to talk to the developer. I know that they're talking about the rolled asphalt curbs, but I think this area, rolled asphalt curbs are the least desirable. So we'll talk to the the developer about either concrete or granite.
Good, thank you.
And would you be willing to do sidewalks? I mean, at least to the driveway. So when we looked it up, the sidewalks currently go to 211 Aberdeen. And then have the sidewalk go up to at least to the driveway of the new home. Not all the way to the corner where I totally agree with you, you're putting someone into peril.
Yeah, I wish Mr. Lingo was here. He might be able to better explain.
It's just a caucus, so we could ask.
Right, yeah. But my belief is that he never really owns this lot, right? It's getting subdivided. It stays with Mr. Evans, and Rockwell owns this one. Not sure how that would work with the sidewalks.
Well, that property's for sale.
I think it's worth
Then there's that, too.
exploring.
The Evans property's for sale.
Okay.
I would suggest it's
Yeah.
worth exploring and having that conversation before you come back. Mr. Norsini, can you lead that discussion?
Absolutely. Mr. Spellman, we can meet on curbing and sidewalk if
All right.
your leisure, if that's.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, that would be terrific. Because I do think the character of the curbing kind of preserves the character of the neighborhood. And, you know, you don't know that a young family's not going to move into that home and want to be able to bike and walk with their kids to Wayne. So, and I do agree that the sidewalk going all the way to the point there is pointless, if you will. All right. Any further questions? No? Any public questions? Seeing none, we'll see you again. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
3C is also a caucus, a preliminary / final subdivision plan for 101 Sproul Road. Subdivision of one lot into two lots. One of the lots has an existing residential dwelling. Do we have the applicant for this?
Nick Canelli,
Mr.
representing
Cornelia.
the applicant. Looking around to see if I have an engineer here or an applicant, and I don't see one. So this is a two-lot subdivision. There were a couple waivers requested on it. It was approved by the Planning Commission. There was two waivers. One was the typical 500 square feet. The other one was, I believe, actually, that may be the only one. And trees. So as to the trees, this is a two-lot subdivision. The owner actually lives and will remain living in one of the parcels. The other parcel will be subdivided off and eventually, in the future, probably be sold. As a result, they're requesting that the trees not be located until actually a grading permit be issued for that one lot, the lot to be sold. I believe there was a meeting before, shade tree on it, and that was explained to them, and that's why the waiver would be requested on it. There are trees on the lot. We know there are trees on the lot. I'm sure there probably are trees over 6 inches in caliber, but actually we don't know what will be removed until we actually have a grading permit. So that was the reason for the request there. And Steve, is there a plan, or I'm sorry? Thank you, Mr. Norsini.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, that would be, that's my script.
Thank you, sir. I apologize.
Well, it's not your fault, obviously. Would you prefer to table this until the?
We'll try to go through it. If the board feels it should be tabled and we come
Okay.
back, that would be fine as well. I know this has been a long process, so I know that's why the applicant wanted to proceed with it. So just to familiarize, here's Sproul Road. This is a small, Quaker Lane is right here, and then Woodstock comes in here. There is, at one point, there was a paper road that came all the way down here, Quaker Lane. but that was never open, and with conversations with the solicitor's office, is void, basically because it was never open. So what we have here is Sproul, and then we have Quaker, and then Woodstone. The lot here is a lot where the owner actually resides. There is an easement across his lot to adjacent lots. That easement will remain. His house is here. This is the lot that really is being subdivided that would be there for future development, possibly, for the applicant to sell. So as I mentioned, it's just a two-lot subdivision. The larger lot is where the applicant and his wife will reside, and the lot up by Sproul Road would be where the possible new owner would reside, who would build a new home. The driveway, the understanding is, would come out onto Quaker Lane for this lot here, for Lot 1. And as I mentioned, there is just two waivers requested, one for the street trees, caliber of trees, and the other one for the 500 feet. Everything else, the review letters are pretty clean. There's really no other items there that won't be covered in the grading permit application and the stormwater management system.
Yeah, I remember it, I guess it was planning. There was some concern about the driveway coming out there.
Right.
But I don't really see that there's an alternative other than a driveway out onto
Or
Sproul,
Sproul, which is exactly.
sounds lethal.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, that was, you're right, there was discussion
Yeah.
Regarding that.
And maybe I'm not getting, so the issue with the trees is a waiver for planting of street trees, but they feel that there are enough trees there? Is
No,
that-
it was a waiver for locating the trees. In our ordinance, it states that you have to locate all trees over 6 inches in caliber.
Got it.
And the waiver is for that, for it to be reserved until it's determined how it's going to be built upon.
Sure, you don't
And
know
at
the
that
site of the
point-
home.
Yeah,
Right.
and at that point, the applicant, whoever is proceeding with development, would have to locate all those trees as part of the grading permit application.
Is that fairly standard, Mr. Norsini? I mean,
For a project such as this, it's not a big ask. So when that grading permit comes in, they will have to go to the Shade Tree Commission. They're going to have to go through, every tree removed, compensatory trees, and the like.
because I remember them talking about some trees had fallen and they had to do some cleanup work, yeah. Okay. Any questions from commissioners?
Sorry, quick question. What's the address of that? Because when I look it up, it sometimes goes to a different spot.
Yeah, it said, at least on the plan, what I have down, looking 101 Sproul Road is what it states on the deed.
Yeah.
So that's the whole lot?
That's the whole lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this presumably would get an address on,
Right.
on the side road,
On probably Quaker, I would
Quaker,
guess.
yeah.
Yeah.
if that's
It
where the
would have a
driveway's
Quaker
gonna come out.
address, because that's where the driveway would be. Again, I guess it'd be up to the township as to determine what address it would be.
So that's Mrs. Mary Ann Cassidy's job. She will give
Okay.
you an address.
Probably Quaker, I would assume, is a more desirable address than Sproul, I would think.
There may not be much choice.
Yeah.
You may get assigned an address.
Exactly.
All right, any further commissioner questions, comments? Any public comments on this one? This is a caucus. Is everyone happy, or do we need to have a repeat caucus with the applicant here? I'm happy. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glad you're here.
Thank you, Mr.
Item 3D is a caucus again, preliminary land development plan for 800 Lancaster Avenue. This is Villanova University, the Connolly Center, expansion of the current student center.
I know I have clients here for this one.
I see them.
We'll call this up, and What this is an addition to the Conley Center in the middle of Villanova's campus. You see the rendering is toward the back. If you're familiar with the Conley Center, this would be an addition to the rear of that building. Some of you may know the Conley Center is kind of, I guess you would call it a student union building at Villanova, for lack of a better word. It's over 40 years old. It's way outdated. Currently, it's used for the university's on-campus food service and for meeting spaces. It will serve the same purposes here. As I said, it's really an idea to modernize and basically a generational upgrade of the building. The current space is inadequate and worn. Actually, the university did go to the original donors, and they're very much in favor of this proposed addition. It fits within their view of what the building should be. The location of the building, we'll show you on the campus map, is in the middle of the campus. It's basically several hundred feet from many of the properties. You see it dotted out, see the dotted line where it would be located. There's a couple of waivers requested. The typical one regarding the 500 feet. We do have an aerial photograph there. There's also a request for a waiver from a traffic impact statement, although we did produce a trip generation report that has been reviewed. Also, the other waiver that the applicant requested was that this be considered as a preliminary final plan. As you see, it's very small in scope. There's actually no, the stormwater management system is already in place as to where the stormwater management will be located for this building. There's really no other site improvements except for pavers walking up to the door to the entrance. There's no excavation being required here. And so, as I mentioned, it's a very minor addition to the building. It's approximately 7,000 square feet. The footprint is this two-story addition. And remember, this is regarding the addition. The existing Conley Center remains the same. It's still food service. It's still being the same type of use that is general meeting room space. I know one thing has been mentioned, so I'm just going to bring it out, and that is regarding the operator of this facility, and I'm talking about the operator of the food service in the existing building, may be Wawa. That's not final yet, but there's a possibility that may occur. But again, all it's doing is operational. Like many universities now, vendors are coming in and operating food services on campus. So it really doesn't change much. Villanova currently has a convenience store on that site, in that building. And again, as I mentioned, the only difference would be that Wawa would be operating it, possibly. It's not final. And this would be targeted to the Villanova community. It's not targeted anywhere else. It's just targeted to the Villanova community. As I mentioned, is internal to campus. It is restricted as to parking is required. I'll have Mike Roth from Pannoni describe the plan in a little more detail. Go ahead, Mike.
Sure. Mike Roth from Pannoni. Nick sort of spoke about the whole project, but I'll reiterate. The project is located at the Connolly Center, which is central to campus. We saw that on the earlier exhibit. What we see here is the site plan. You see the two gray shaded boxes. That is the addition to the building. It's a 7,300 square foot addition footprint, and as Nick mentioned, it's 2 stories, so about 14,000 square foot gross for that. Site improvements are limited to the paver area planned north of where the additions is, and that's really just getting the paver sidewalk to align with where the new doors are. There is no parking, no sidewalk, no curbing associated with this proposal.
So I heard there was going to be no digging, but there must be a foundation for these additions.
Correct, yeah, so the site work for this would be limited to putting the additions in and for the pavers.
Is that currently outdoor space?
Correct, yeah.
It's like a terrace?
Currently, it's a large paver plaza area.
And actually, many times there's a temporary tent located in that area because there's just not enough room in the building itself.
And then, just looking at this image, there's the small square to my left, and then the center rectangle. What connects those two? Is that all interior?
Yeah, so that's an existing portion of the building that currently bumps out, that would remain, and you'd have circulation through there.
And just on the review letters, there are very few comments, just like 2 or 3 comments on each. And as I mentioned regarding the waivers, actually, were the main comments.
So I have one question, and I remember it was said, I believe at planning, that this facility would be open to non-campus people, if you will, neighbors and the like. I'm just a little concerned about what you've said about parking and the fact that neighbors might find it the most convenient place to get a quart of milk or a dozen eggs or whatever their thing is, and are unlikely to be walking.
Yeah. Currently, Villanova's campus is open. I mean, anyone could go in the Connolly Center now, get a cup of coffee, get a sandwich, anything of that nature. This just isn't convenient for, neighbors to basically park and walk a good distance to get a gallon of milk when they could pull into another store, pull right in front of the store, and walk in, get a gallon of milk, get in their car, and leave. It's not really, the purpose of this has nothing to do with really the neighborhood, although the neighbors are, again, neighbors are allowed on Villanova's campus. They're allowed to walk their dogs. They're allowed to, enter campus and go into their buildings.
Thank you.
But the parking is really restricted. There's really going to be no place to park close to this facility for neighbors to go in and use it. They're going to have to walk, either from the parking garage on Lancaster Avenue or one of the other parking structures on campus, probably.
Are those parking spaces on the circle there?
Yeah, so there's existing parking spaces on the circle. They are to remain. And the other point to note is the campus does have a surplus. So even with the additional required spaces for this project, they still have a surplus.
And is there a specific sticker or, people that are allowed to park there? Yes. Is that how that works? So they're zoned, or I don't know how you do your parking, but.
Yeah, there aren't that many parking spaces there. There are some that are reserved for permit. There are some for handicap. It's really a drop-off space, and that's typically where if we have buses coming in or some sort of circulation, that's what that circle really is for.
Thank you.
And what about deliveries? How do they come? How do you load up the Wawa?
I think I have this on a different sheet, but the deliveries are in the existing loading dock. So again, here's the Connolly Center. The loading dock loads in off of Ithan Avenue. There's a driveway that comes in right next to Doherty Drive, and there's actually a tunnel that goes from here into the Connolly Center. So that would remain unchanged.
So you have 2 waiver requests, I think?
Yes, one is the 500 feet.
Which?
Yeah, and the other one's the TIS, and there was a trip generation report submitted along with this.
Got it. Can't speak for the rest of the board. I don't care about the 500 feet. We know what's there. It doesn't make a difference. The traffic report, you guys are doing a lot in terms of the additional campuses. There's buses, there's students who are going to have additional cars, and how this is used by the additional development that is contemplated by the university is something that I would actually like to see a traffic report for. The other issue that I wanted to bring to your attention, though, is I know for the past decade more, we have treated Villanova's campus as a single contiguous lot, but it's not. And it made total sense to do so when the university was that contiguous lot or that contiguous area, because no student was going to walk from their dorm to their cars, then drive to the Connolly Center or something, right? They were always going to walk. So fundamentally, the student traffic on campus was likely going to be pedestrian 90% of the time. Now that the school is no longer a single contiguous campus, though, I'm not sure that it makes sense to continue to treat it as if it was one lot. Our ordinance actually requires that the parking be on lot, not on campus. So for me, I would be looking for a waiver application for the parking situation, unless you actually unless you have that surplus for this particular lot, which I wouldn't.
Yeah, and I don't know that, but I have to disagree with you, Commissioner Larkin.
I know you have
This is one lot. This has always been treated as one lot. Villanova owns both sides of the roadway on Sproul Road as well as Lancaster Avenue. That is why it's been treated as one lot. It is one parcel of land on main campus. Now, obviously, Cabrini and Rosemont, that's different. And even the conference center, that's different. But what the parking calcs you see here are just for main campus, if we were going to call it main campus, which is, West Campus, South Campus, and of course, the middle campus here. And everything's connected. Everything's interconnected here. Under our ordinance, it is one lot.
Well, it's not one lot under our ordinance. If you can find me something, and, please email me, I'd be happy to see it. Because this is just caucus, we're not voting on anything tonight. But if you can find something that says the common ownership of multiple parcels or multiple lots turns it into a single lot, then I think Kenny Kearns would be very interested in that, because he can start counting parking for a bunch of different buildings as being, for one. But more to the point, I would be interested in seeing that too. I just have never seen that anywhere. It's not in our ordinance. That's all I have.
Okay. Again, we'll discuss that at a future date.
Sure, that's fine. Any further questions?
So it's going to be a Wawa?
Commissioner Agnew, we don't know. It has not been finalized yet. And it's not, when you say, is it going to be a Wawa?
No,
it's not traditional.
It's not
It's not traditional Wawa. Wawa will be operating the convenience store here. It's not, there's no signage, there's no advertising. There's no bird or whatever Wawa has as their
The same
insignia.
delivery trucks that'll be coming to Wayne?
I'm sorry.
Will they be the same delivery trucks?
That I don't know. I don't know if anyone at Villanova knows or not. Well, there's no gas, so obviously it's not going to be
Not
the
gas.
big ones.
We
yeah.
know, I'm not talking about
Right,
gas.
yeah. Yeah, and I'm not certain. We can check with Wawa as to what type of delivery trucks they would be having. But again, it'd be internal to campus.
When will you know?
We'll try to check with them. We don't have an agreement with Wawa right now.
That's what I'm saying, when will you
Yeah.
know?
There's no agreement. I really don't know. We will look into it. We'll look into it. We'll try to look into it. Go ahead.
Just wanted to clarify. Hi, Commissioner Agnew. I'm Hallie Ammons with Villanova. Just wanted to clarify, a little bit more on your question, if you can elaborate a little bit. Maybe we can help clarify, maybe
No,
give you more information.
There's a Wawa that's going in to my ward. Deliveries are an issue, then timing of deliveries are an issue. So now if there's going to be even bigger trucks, because they're going to be delivering to Villanova, I'd like to know that.
And that's something we can certainly look into for our team, but we currently are accepting deliveries on campus. Mary Lou, I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit more.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Mary Lou Smith with Villanova. And Nick is saying that we have a Wawa in there. Currently, we have a convenience store, or we have a restaurant, not a restaurant, but we have an area where we serve food, that this is now going to become a Wawa type area. There's other food concepts. This is not, the entire building is not a Wawa. It's a smaller version that'll serve Villanova campus. As for the deliveries, there'll be the same delivery schedule that we have currently for this facility. So they'll come in off of Ithan Avenue, as they do now, and we have 40 to 55-foot trucks that deliver to Doherty Hall and to Conley Center every day. Normally, they come in the morning. That's our delivery schedule, not during the school day, because we only need it, I believe, once a day. So it shouldn't be any different than it is currently right now. The difference will be that it will be called a Wawa instead of the Bel Air Terrace. Does that help?
I want to know if it's going to affect the third ward. That's what I want to know.
Oh, I hear you. I don't think it will. I truly believe that it is no different than our students going and eating in this food establishment now. For it to be a Wawa that someone would come in, or I live on Auburn Lane, I wouldn't, drive in my car to go over there to get and I don't even know if we're going to be selling milk. I think most of it is a food concept where, you go in, you can get sandwiches to order, coffee, that kind of thing. It is not the Wawa that you're looking at in Wayne. I
So
thought I
we
would
can talk
divert
about
it
it
to
once
him on the Wayne one.
I'm sorry?
I thought I would divert it to the Wayne Wawa.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of.
It is not going to be that way. No, it is not.
We
We
can
don't
talk-
have the
once you
square
know-
footage or the area.
Once you know who the tenant, is it a tenant, I guess?
Pardon?
Will be a tenant? Is that how, are they a tenant or something? I don't want to use the wrong term. Once you know what that store will be, we can talk about it.
Figure on it being a Wawa right now.
So it's not a
So
really
that's-
maybe.
Well, we do not have a signed agreement. However, it's moving in that direction. So I'm going to say that it will end up being that. If it isn't, then it's going to go back to being Bel Air Terrace 2, which is what it is currently right now. So if you've ever been into a Conley Center right now, you go in, there's, food courts, you get pizza, you get fried food, salad bar, there's drinks, Cokes and stuff like that. So it will be very similar to that, just in a newer environment. And again, as Nick said, this place has not been renovated in 45 years. So it's time to update it and to change the food concept to something different. And so even that, there's other food concepts within the facility that will serve our students as well. Okay? And that's part of the renovation project.
We'll talk about it later.
Okay. Can I answer any other questions or?
Any further questions? Seeing none? Okay. Is there any public participation? And seeing none. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Next item is 3E, Resolution 2025-64, preliminary/final minor land development plan approval for 117 South Radnor Chester Road with the demolition of the existing residential dwelling, subdivision of a single lot into two, each with a residential dwelling. Could I have a motion, please? So moved by Commissioner Mulrooney, and a second. Second by Commissioner Riley.
So you saw this, I believe, a couple weeks ago in caucus. Some of you may remember this plan appeared as a three-lot subdivision several years ago. It was denied by the board. This was under a different applicant, denied by the board. The new applicant has come in, had numerous meetings with the neighbors, and everyone seems to be happy with this proposed two-lot subdivision plan that you see here and that you saw in caucus previously. We have the resolution in front of us. We have no issue with the resolution. The waivers being requested or the 500-foot requirement. It lists that there's a waiver on the 80-foot right-of-way dedication. I really don't think that's a waiver. It's fine if the township wants to treat it as a waiver, but the wording of the ordinance doesn't treat it as a waiver. And additionally, Radnor Chester Road is a state road. So really, we can't give right-of-way to a township on a state road. The other waiver requested was on the street trees, and perhaps we can discuss that one a little bit. And then there's another waiver regarding road widening, which again, I don't believe is a waiver request, but it is issued here. And again, if the township wants to treat it as a waiver, that's fine with us. As to the street trees, if we can just possibly show what the issue is with that.
Good evening, Ed Nesbitt with Hale Engineering. The waiver being requested here is we're only planting 6 street trees for the entire frontage, as we're using the existing tree line there, so we're not technically planting the 1 per 30 feet that's required by the ordinance.
And is there a sidewalk waiver at this property as well?
There should be. I don't notice one in the application, but there's really no place to put a sidewalk, and there's no sidewalks here anyway. And I'll defer to Mr. Norsini on that one.
Mr. Norsini, can you comment? I'm sorry.
So, yeah, it's not in the resolution. I would ask Mr. Graham, we would have to add that if we could. And, yeah, Radnor Chester Road is not conducive to sidewalks. Hopefully someday our trail will be adjacent to this lot, but sidewalks will be across the street as they are now for the TAP trail.
But it would still require a waiver.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it would, yeah, I agree.
Can we attend to that? That would be good. And is this the property where, with the trail extension, you requested some space to be able to get vehicles down there?
We did. I did. And in reality, that was just an ask. The board had decided previously that they wished to have the culvert installed. So the reality of it is everything is going to be going through the trail. So we don't have to have this, to have an easement. It's not required.
Thank you. Is there a slope there? There must be a...
Considerable.
Yeah. So that might not be very useful anyway. Okay. Commissioner, questions? No? I think we've all heard quite a bit about this property. Public participation. No questions or concerns there. All right, I'm going to call a vote on Resolution 2025-64. All in favor? Aye? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Good luck with the project. 3F is Resolution 2025-65, Final Land Development Plan Approval for 60 West Avenue. Rehabilitation of the parking lot on West Avenue and construction of residential condominiums and retail space at the intersection of Lancaster and Bellevue Avenue. Could I have a motion, please? So moved by Commissioner Larkin this time. And second by Commissioner Agnew. Thank you very much. Mr. Falcone.
Good to see everyone. David Falcone here on behalf of the applicant. We are seeking our final land development approval this evening. We were in front of you all a couple of weeks ago for caucus. And we have our review letters, the same 2 review letters that were issued for the last meeting, April 7th and April 4th, from Gannett and Gilmore, respectively. Following that meeting, we have, there was kind of one significant outstanding item, and we've submitted an updated pedestrian study to Mr. Norsini. If you all may recall, I guess 2 Mondays ago, we did meet with Mr. Norsini and staff to discuss a couple of the open traffic items. Those were addressed as part of that meeting. We were happy to, Mr. Norsini made time for us before we were able to appear for you during that caucus meeting. Since that point, we have had one additional neighbor meeting. We've continued with that process. That was last week. We've had this similar type attendance to that. We've maintained that through the process. All of the letters, we have our engineer here tonight, but all of the comments on the letters are will comply as they were, as we discussed during caucus. Nothing has changed since that point except for the submission of the updated pedestrian study, which again was given to Mr. Norsini. I don't believe there's any open comments on that as well. I know that Mr. Larkin at the end of the last meeting had mentioned that we revisit some comments we had received from the neighbors with respect to some off-site plantings. That was also addressed during the last neighbor meeting, I believe, or was not brought up during the last. That was addressed with the neighbors during the last neighbor meeting, as well as following the caucus meeting outside. Those off-site plantings were not part of our land development plan, and that was an intentional step during the process as we move through land development. They have never been shown in our plans during land development, and so that is not something that we are prepared to entertain at this point. But it was, again, addressed last week with the neighbors on the monthly call. So I have nothing additional to add, but we are here.
Excellent. Just so you know, it's already been brought up in public participation, the initial public participation, this question of landscaping at the AT&T building. I do not believe it was one of our conditions.
Was not, no,
Because
ma'am.
it's not your property.
That's correct.
And I think that that's the real problem here, is that in order to get street trees, I mean, that would have to be AT&T's
Yes, ma'am.
decision.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. Questions? Go ahead.
Sorry, quick question. Next year's side on Bellevue, you guys are having trees.
Yes, and it was shown on our plan. It went through shade tree, and it's part of our landscaping plan that y'all approved. That's correct.
So I've had some conversations with the applicant about this, and I know that there is resident concern about this. One of the problems that we have is there's been so much conversation about this project that in the past, and please correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but my recollection is that there was a time when you guys were contemplating doing landscaping improvements for AT&T. There were renderings that were shown to the public, or at least drawings that were shown to the public of that. Some people were here and saw those and then either checked out of the conversation or didn't keep up with what was happening with that. The change, however, became when the township asked for, we were looking for a $10,000 per unit fee. You guys were no longer able to provide the same landscaping proposal that you had. That's why that was no longer a condition of approval. What I'd like to do and propose is that we hold some township resident meetings to ask the question, what do you want to do with the $10,000 fee? And if the answer is, we want the street trees, that's our highest and best use, then there might be an opportunity to ask the applicant or just ourselves to install those street trees sooner rather than later, so long as we can get AT&T's approval. If the answer is we really have higher and better uses, this is something that we like, but it's, there's a limited pot of money and we'd rather that it go to sidewalk improvements or whatever else, then the residents as a group get to make that decision instead of just us sitting here today or the applicant on their own or whatever else. So not so much a question for you other than did I get the timeline wrong, but that was my 2 cents on
No, that is the correct timeline, and I think what we ran up against was we were moving to off-site improvements, which start to become kind of outside of what we're kind of generally obligated to do, and so in order to kind of address that, we decided to make kind of the one lump sum payment to you all to handle things that were off our site, and then we handled the items that were on our site.
Well, it's also, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there was a time before the deal went through with AT&T that this could have been an element of your deal with AT&T. Now you'd have to go and ask them for permission.
For sure. That is correct.
That's kind of what's problematic. But again, the applicant, I want to say, has been really nice. I asked them to go, please get me a price on what it would cost if you guys would do that. They kind of asked around to figure out what the cost would be. We're now in a position where we can make the decision either as this board, we say that we're going to do it, or the residents can give us some direction as to what they want. With that dollar figure, we can get it done. So I just want to give them credit for, they're not able to do it, they're not required to do it, but they're still trying to help get it done.
Excellent. I think the idea of a neighborhood meeting about how they really want to spend their taxpayer money to help whether it's landscaping, sidewalks, crosswalks, I don't know. But we could have further discussions about that. Further Commissioner questions? Commissioner Abel.
Yep. So a couple meetings ago, we had a long discussion on the parking lot, and there was some back and forth on the lighting. I haven't heard a resolution on that. How did that end up?
So I think during preliminary plan, what we agreed to was with Mr. Norsini and Mr. Rice was before the township, or once the township parking lot comes online, it'll be before our building, right, comes online, we are going to go out with staff. We're going to stand there with Mr. Norsini, with Mr. Rice, and any other consultants, and determine, I think the foot candle, we set a minimum foot candle. If we can't agree that the lighting is sufficient, we'll just come up and meet that minimum foot candle. But we're all going to get out there. We're going to work in good faith. We've committed to making the lot lit to the township satisfaction. And that was kind of the agreement during preliminary, and we're going to stick to it. So, and I think the reason we set the minimum foot candle was if for some reason we're out there and we don't agree on what is well lit, then we just have to build it to that foot candle, and and there's kind of no more discussion. So, yep.
Mr. Norsini, you agree?
Yes, ma'am. We did.
Excellent.
And
Good.
.5 is the minimum foot candle.
Thank you. Perfect. Further commissioner questions, comments? Seeing none, public participation. Good evening, Mr. Akins.
Good evening. John Aiken, 116 South Bellevue Avenue. This is pretty short. I'm not addressing any specific issues, but I have an overall critique of this entire process from, the summer of 2023 up until now. Since the onset of this development, there has been a lack of sufficient communication, clarity, and certainty regarding the future of the AT&T property and what will happen with that down the way. The initial architectural design did not pass the smell test. Even with the modest change, there was little or nothing new regarding the various issues we live with day by day, be it infrastructure, parking, traffic patterns, as well as the increased debris in our streets and gutters. The entire project is nothing new, nor is it innovative. It lacks imaginative thinking and out of the box. I presume everybody is familiar with the phrase thinking outside of the box. The intrinsic nature of this project still exists. We will have more of what we deal with now, not less. The design as it is, the building, the grounds, the entrance and exits do not address the future of more development and difficult challenges that we face today, and not just in our community. Environmental and ecological issues are already of paramount concerns across the country. The sheepskin on the wall does not make an architect an artist. Just as someone, I'm a little metaphor here, just as someone who knows how to cook does not make them a chef. Hence the phrase, the culinary arts. The job of an artist is to provide what's missing, the presence of which makes a difference. Not all doctors are healers. Hence the phrase, the healing arts. Someone who can sing and dance does not translate into the performing arts. And someone who has a vision does not necessarily make them a visionary. In my considered opinion, this project is paint by the numbers. I do want to add a couple of things. I've lived in Radnor for 70-odd years. Radnor Township does an extraordinary job in the overall township, and I would imagine we are the envy of many townships across the country in dealing with traffic and snow and roads and repairs. And this township does a terrific job, and I've watched it over the decades as things have come and gone. But we face challenges today that did not exist half a century ago. I would like to leave with one thought, and this has got nothing to do with this project but our overall community. And you will remember that in one of my visits here, were you wondering what was in this roll? It got your curiosity? Well, I'll satisfy it. All of us have a conscientious duty as a resident, as a citizen, whatever, however you want to call it. And the country I grew up in, I learned from the greatest generation and the parents of the greatest generation that whatever it is, use it up, make it do without, or throw it out. And I learned from the parents of the greatest generation who saved the world to pay attention to these things. And this is these signs used to be all over the country back in the days, and it's, don't be a litter bug. And in case any of you have missed this, there it is again. I'm curious, if we had no litter in the streets, Would that save us tax money? Would it make the township's job easier if you didn't, well, not you, but the township folks that are all around, and they're great to do the job that they do. Would it make a difference in expenses if we didn't have to pick up non-biodegradable materials, plastic, wood, steel, the little plastic ties and such like that? Would it make a difference, not just in keeping our community clean, but the infrastructure that lies underground? There would be less damage to it, less spider webs to pull out of it. That's kind of my closing thought, except for one thing. When I brought up the issue, my job in the military was to solve problems before they happen and come up with solutions when it did happen. I was surprised that nobody on any of the boards or the township addressed the issue of what if there was a fire in the basement of this building, and that brought about some changes for emergency access. My thought is, what else was missed in this progress? I thank you for the time, and you may not see me here for a while, but I'm extremely grateful of the time that you give us residents. And thank you very much. Have a pleasant evening.
Thank you, Mr. Aiken. And I have to agree, the world would be a better place without litter.
Thank you, Maggie.
All right, any further public participation? All right, seeing none.
Excuse me, Commissioner.
Oh, I'm
Sorry.
sorry. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sorry.
I do have one question for the applicant's engineer. We did receive some comments back from PennDOT. One of the comments suggested they're requesting a curb line near the parking garage. This seems to may have an impact on your drainage system. Just want to see if you have thought about how to address that yet.
Yes, so we just received that letter, I believe, at the end of last week. So we are taking a look into that. I believe that area is currently modeled as bypass, so we'll have to put in drainage and some sort of level spreader to convey the runoff from that area.
So, Mr. Grimm, this was received after Mr. Rice wrote the approval resolution. So can we have some, we're going to need something in there to the effect, meeting the requirements of the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation for curbing at the parking garage and subsequent stormwater management.
That's fine.
Thank you, both of you. All right, so we're going to vote on resolution, hold on, I got to find it again, 2025-65 as amended by Mr. Norsini, and you have the language there. All in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. Good luck with the project. All right. Next is item 3G. It's discussion and direction from the Willows Park Preserve, noise mitigation. We're having an update after your testing. Mr. Norsini, did you want to start us off on this?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. So as was noted by the residents on Friday, we did do a sound test. The Willows Park Preserve had the music there. They have new speakers as recommended previously by Mr. Nye. So myself and Ben Wagner went to two different houses. Dennis Capella was down at the site. The results were favorable. And as they noted, though, this was from, a system similar to like what a DJ would be. So the residents were, I think that were okay with what we said, what they heard, but they definitely want to have that same testing done when there is a band with a drum, perhaps, or things that are not going through the amplifier system, right? And we've asked the WPP to do that. They have hired an event manager. So we've asked them for the next event to have that person stay at the same spots we did and with the residents and test again. And I'll hand it off to Mr. Nord.
Welcome.
Welcome. Good evening. My name is Will Nord. I'm the Executive Director at the Willows Park Preserve. I usually stand in front of you giving an update twice a year about programs and events and community usage and our finances. This evening, like Mr. Norsini just started off, we are discussing the continuing efforts to mitigate sound that comes from some of our outdoor events and how it impacts some of our neighbors who live across the street from the Willows Park. We are grateful to our neighbors who are continuing to be open for communication with us. We are grateful for the township staff, Mr. Wagner, Mr. Norsini, Mr. Capella, for helping us through the sound test and continuing support and recommendations as we go through this process of mitigating the sound. We have heard from a few people that we have done nothing to mitigate the sound and to solve this issue. We've also heard from some that we are not taking this issue seriously. So, as we've said before, saying it again, we do not agree with these claims at all, that we feel that they're inaccurate and actually deeply disheartening. In addition to the numerous emails, phone calls, in-person meetings that we've had over the last couple of years with our neighbors, our caterers, and the township, we did want to share a detailed list of the many steps we have taken to try to mitigate whatever impact the sound from the Willows Park mansion may have on our neighbors. So in the winter, to start off, in the winter of 2022, the Willows Park Preserve changed the end time for events at the mansion from 11 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Fridays and Saturday evenings. The event times from Sunday through Thursday are end times are 9 p.m. On August 31st, 2023, from the request of certain neighbors, the WPP and neighbors visited Appleford, which has experienced similar sound issues to those of the Willows Mansion. During the fall and winter of 2023, the Willows Park Preserve met with 2 sound system representatives, and 1 consultant recommended by our caterer, Peachtree. In late winter 2024, the Willows Park Preserve purchased a new sound system, including its own speakers. This system was tested in the presence of several neighbors. In April 2024, the WPP adopted a written notice for music providers setting forth guidelines to follow when playing at events at the Willows Mansion. This included the requirement to use the WPP's own system. This notice form was based on a template shared with us by Appleford. In April 2024, the WPP changed the floor plan for events held in the tent at the mansion, including the placement of bands and speakers. The bands and speakers were relocated to face away from our Inverary neighbors and towards Skunk Hollow. When the bands play underneath the tent side behind the band is required to be on. Radnor Police took a total of 27 decibel readings during 6 outdoor events at the mansion in May and June of 2024. These readings were taken place in 3 different areas, one in the Willows Park down the hill from the event tent, and 2 others on the patio of 2 neighbors that live across the street from the Willows. 19 readings. Of the 27 decibel readings taken over the 6 outdoor events, 19 readings were under 50 decibels, 7 were between 50 and 60 decibels, and 1 reading was measured above 60 at 62.6 decibels. We've talked about this before, I believe, but for some context, normal conversation is generally considered to be around 60 decibels. Rain is considered to be measured at around 50 decibels. This does show, and we've talked about this before, that this is a unique situation where the topography of the park and the specific location of a few properties across the street really impact those specific properties in a manner not experienced by other neighbors. The WPP and its catering partner, Peachtree, have developed a short list of bands and DJs that are permitted to play music at the Willows Mansion. Music vendors that have not or do not in the future comply with WPP requirements regarding sound levels are not and won't be permitted to play at the mansion. The WPP has worked proactively with Peachtree, our caterer, to ensure that a written notice of noise ordinance was sent to all music providers and licensees that were currently under contract. The WPP paid for a sound engineer to be on site for most events through the 2024 wedding season. The WPP board chair was also present for the majority of these events. The WPP has added Exhibit B to our space license agreement, requiring signature by both the venue license and the band DJ, detailing noise requirements that must be met. Additionally, the SLA requires the licensee to choose from a list of trusted music providers. The WPP received recommendations on how to address the sound issues from Mondo Media in November of 2024 and Scott and I in December of 2024. Most recently, the WPP has hired an on-site manager for the 2025-26 season. He will be solely focused on monitoring the music, and he will be taking decibel readings during all the events and providing weekly reports. He will also be a point of contact for neighbors. The WPP is creating a couple of new 4-foot by 6-foot high barriers consisting of plywood and foam in the middle that will be placed behind any band that plays in the tent this season. The WPP will be installing, hopefully this week, landscaping along the Willows Mansion that is next closest to the tent area, event tent area. We most recently also purchased new speakers for the tent that have a more narrow distribution of sound. And as Mr. Norsini said, last Friday on April 25th, a sound check was held with neighbors and Township, WPP, our new event manager, and also a representative from Peachtree. We did hear, as Mr. Norsini said, we are open to another test when there is an actual event with the band or DJ. And like I just said, our event manager will be taking decibel readings until we say otherwise at almost every event and doing weekly reports on where those readings are. Finally, the biggest change the WPP has made in collaboration with our partner Peachtree, our catering partner Peachtree, is to put a temporary moratorium requiring for all new contracts to confine dancing music to inside the Willows Mansion. Please note, weddings and like events may still have, under this plan, weddings and like events may still have dinner under the tent and speeches and first formal dances, and then the rest of the evening dancing will take place in the solarium. This is, as you can imagine, this is a major and very impactful measure for the WPP. It will materially alter the event experience at the mansion for all future clients and will require us, our nonprofit, to reduce its venue fees to compensate for the loss of outdoor music and dancing. The lost revenue from this change in operations will, of course, reduce the resources available to the WPP to complete restoration of the mansion, to operate the facility, and to deliver community programming and events, which we have delivered over the past few years with great success and which is at the heart of our mission. Another important note with this new change, contracts for events in 2025 and contracts already signed in 2026 will still be able to have music underneath the tent. So we will continue to work on, trying to mitigate the sound during this time. Expenses spent on mitigating the sound currently totals over $32,000 for our nonprofit. This includes $7,400 for speakers and a sound system, $7,100 for our sound engineer to be on site and to help bands set up and DJs set up last year. We are budgeting between $11,000 and $15,000 in 2025, 2026 for our new event manager to be on site, $3,800 for landscaping, $2,200 for the new speakers we just purchased. In addition to the change of moving music inside in the near future, it has been strongly recommended that we have a new connector tent from the mansion to the existing 40 by 60 tent for inclement weather. This estimate for the tent connector comes in around $20,000. So we have recognized that this is a very unfortunate challenge issue for some of our neighbors. I feel like we've been very honest and open in our communications. We've returned every email, every phone call. We've been very open to having meetings, going to meetings, hosting meetings. We will continue to communicate with the affected neighbors in the township to work on these issues. In closing, as noted above, the ability to host weddings and other celebrations that have music is really essential for our nonprofit as we continue to try to restore and operate and maintain the Willows Mansion. We have countless community members who have expressed support of our mission and are grateful that there is this effort to save the mission. Without revenue from these events, we honestly are not sure how we could continue to exist as a nonprofit that works tirelessly to enhance this community. Thank you. I know that was a little long, but
No, thank you for
thank
the very detailed description of everything that's gone on in the timeline. It was incredibly helpful. And we thank you so much for putting in all this effort that the WPP has put in to try to assess this issue. Questions for Mr. Nord? Go ahead.
Will, appreciate you coming here. And I just want to start off, I don't know, you mentioned neighbors or people saying that you guys haven't done anything or you've ignored the issue. I haven't heard that.
Okay.
I've heard the complete opposite. And just you reading the timeline, I think is indicative of the amount of time and how long we've been talking about this issue.
Right.
So I appreciate your efforts, the WPP. I appreciate the neighbors being involved, and I appreciate the coordination between the neighbors, the WPP, and the township. It's been a long road. It sounds like the tests on Friday were positive, so it looks like we're getting to a place where everyone seems to be a little bit more comfortable, which is, which I'm happy about. So the speakers that you used on Friday, I mean, what was that? I mean, what do you, what changed that allowed for the positive test?
I'm not sure. To be very honest, we've tried a lot of things, and quite honestly, a lot of them haven't worked to the satisfaction of some, right? It hasn't moved the needle enough. The landscaping wasn't in. That was a pretty big recommendation, where there's going to be a nice line of, arborvitaes and other shrubs that, so it doesn't bounce straight off the mansion. Those weren't in during the test. We had mentioned, and the neighbors had requested another test because it was 10:30 in the morning on a Friday, right? The ambient noise, as showed in those testings, measured at 54 decibels, and the music coming from the tent at that time was, 55, 56 decibels, right? So that's wild to think about. How much different is a Friday night and a Saturday night, with an actual DJ? We were playing music under the tent. We were there, and I think Bill was there, and so and it was at a decent level. Like, it was, if you were standing in front of the speakers, it was loud. So it's not like we, really lowered it too much. With 100 people under that tent, some say actually people help buffer some of the noise instead of having less people there. So, I'm not sure, but we'll continue to tweak and, take the appropriate steps if we know that it's going to make a difference. I think that's a key too, right? There's been some recommendations that have been put forth that nobody really knows for sure, if it's going to work or not. If we know for sure that this is going to help mitigate the sound issue, we'll spend some money, thoughtfully. I do appreciate, and one of our neighbors said this a little while ago, but I really appreciate what she said at one point in one of our meetings is, our hope, right, is to kind of meet in the middle, right? Meet in the middle somewhere. We've said a couple times, we're not trying to solve for no noise at all. I think that's close to an impossibility, right? That would mean, we're not having any more, outdoor events with music. So we're hopeful that we can meet somewhere in the middle there.
So the speakers used on Friday, will those be the speakers used at every event?
Yes.
And are those speakers only used for DJs? Like,
no, for bands and DJs.
bands as well?
Yes.
Okay.
No, they're actually small.
They're small?
About this, I don't know the dimensions, but they're actually smaller than the other speakers that we had. The last speakers that we purchased before were taller and more narrow. And it is our understanding, we were told, that this has a more narrow scope. Instead of going the music going this way, it's more direct.
Okay.
Some of this is, time will tell, right? I mean, it's tricky, I think we talked about this before. Our last event of last year was an 8-piece band, and stayed up all night saying, wow, this is the worst way to end the season after some of these, complaints. And the feedback from the neighbors was it was an okay experience. It wasn't over the top. It wasn't completely, obnoxious with that one event. So it's interesting whether it's a DJ or a band, how they, what they do, how they use their sound and their instruments. We're optimistic with an event manager, that is focused on sound, that will help as well.
So are you going to plant the shrubs or arborvitae or?
They were supposed to be planted last week,
Okay.
so I'm hopeful they are this week.
And the music will go towards the,
Well, so the music goes towards Skunk Hollow.
Yeah.
The mansion's right here, and the landscaping will be along the mansion wall there. So we're not putting any landscaping in the view of the park. So because we were told that the music was bouncing off the mansion wall and going, so by
that'll be
putting.
there to absorb it, so it doesn't. hit
That's the
wall.
idea, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, Will, so a couple requests. We talk about doing future tests. Can we make it multiple, not just one, just to see that it's consistent?
So right.
Similar to what we did on Friday.
So right now, our event manager is going to, for all the events that have music, those are the events he'll be at, he will have a decibel reader and will take decibel readings at the events. And in his job description, it says, take them outside the tent and also to go up to Lindsay Circle.
So he will go. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the idea right now is to file, reports, weekly reports, and so that we can share them and keep track of where are those levels.
Okay, and so just to get that kind of that visual of the org chart, so the new on-site manager, he will be the point of contact.
Yeah. Yes.
How does that person coordinate with Peachtree and the township? Like, what is that relationship?
So the on-site manager has already met Peachtree. They've met in person. They will have their phone numbers. They will be together at the events, right? So they will be, working together. Also, I talked to Mr. Casey at the test on Friday, and there will be a point person from the neighbors as well. So our event manager isn't getting 3 or 4 phone calls in one evening. It'll come from one call. And so that's our hope. Our event manager can report back to most likely me, on Monday or Tuesday, after the, weekends. And I can send reports to whoever would like to see them.
Okay. And
then, if there's a cleaner way or something that makes more sense, absolutely we can do that.
No, it's just good to know how that process works. And then does the WPP, do you hold monthly meetings?
A board meeting?
As a board meeting.
We meet 9 times a year, so not every month.
Okay.
9 times a year, and then yeah.
And I don't know how the board, I don't know how the board meetings, how the flow goes, but I don't think it's a bad idea if the neighbors are and the WPP are open to it, that you carve out a section of that meeting and allow a conversation between the board and the neighbors on either the sound issue or any other issue impacting, just so there's that constant communication.
We're open to the constant communication, and we've tried, we've put on the calendar some consistent meetings, and they've fallen off. But like it's not speaking for a couple other people that might or might not be in the room, but our board president, along with their HOA president, have had regular meetings, throughout the last couple of years. So if our neighbors don't feel that the communication is consistent enough, we can remedy that.
Okay.
We're open to that.
All right, I appreciate it. Thanks, Will.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you for being here, and the recitation of the timeline I think was really essential. I also agree with Commissioner Abel. I have not been hearing that an accusation that the Willows and WPP is not taking this seriously. Even on your regular presentations here. It's been an issue that we've all talked about, and I know that you've worked really closely with staff and neighbors, and I feel like it's been worth it, right? You've made enough improvements that the neighbors sound like, are able to live with it. I do appreciate the neighbors that are here tonight, and I know that your lived experience, it matters. It matters to us no matter what the decibels say, but that, this is something that you are living with, and I think it's a testament to you and to you, Will, that you've created that dialogue and, been amenable to change. And, but I am concerned about the fiscal impact, the fundraising that you're going to have to step up to make kind of this difference. You're sort of, this was an unforeseen element of creating this, the renovations of the mansion. Nobody thought you were going to have to get into the business of understanding sound to this level. But, it looks like you're tackling it and you're taking it on, and there's always going to be continuous improvements. And that's what I'm really looking forward to, and I hope that satisfies the neighbors and the experience that we all have here. So just thank you to all of you, because I know it's taken a lot, and I can see the good work. We're still all friends, and I like that. So thank you.
I think an important note to reiterate is, the idea of all new contracts moving music inside is, we're saying temporary, because if we can solve this, whether it's this year or, somewhere in the future, we'd love that opportunity to still have music at multiple events outside, underneath the tent, or on the terrace. So we didn't want to say all new contracts from this day forward forever and ever and ever. So we wanted, again, we're going to work on this. That experience, and most of us have all been on the terrace or underneath that tent or in that area. Like, that's beautiful. Like, that's the experience that our caterers are selling at a nice price point that allows us to operate. And so now that we're changing that, I think time will tell, but it's going to be a different sales experience for our caterer, just the new setup. But, again, we'll continue to work on it and see where we can get to. Okay.
Further questions? No. Thank you so much, everybody, for working together to try to solve this problem. For a minute there, I was thinking if you are moving inside, maybe you'd be able to make your events last a little later if things were quieter. But I think right now, stick with what you've got. All right. Yeah, I was getting it. I just wanted to say thanks to Will. Public participation. Anybody? I know you guys were up already, but anybody else have any comments to make? Okay. Seeing none, we have no vote on this issue. Keep up the good work, everybody.
Madam President, if I
Yes.
could, in the interest of saying thank you, I wish we could take this situation and apply it to all the disagreements we have as we go along with neighbors, between neighbors. From day one, this has been very cordial, been very direct and honest about what the expectations were. I know the timeline was a little longer than everyone wanted, and I know we're not there yet. We still have work to do, but just the way everybody treated each other over the course of the last couple of years has been a breath of fresh air. When normally, when there's a dispute, there's a high level of anger and frustration that you have to talk people down from. In this case, that was never the case. It was, we have frustration, but we want to work with you in coming to a resolution. So it was a breath of fresh air, albeit it's taking a lot longer, but it's obvious we're getting there. So I just wanted to express my appreciation too.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay. We're going to move on. Item 3H, Resolution 2025-67, Award of Contract B-25-005, Custodial Services for the Radnor Township Municipal Building, Public Works Building, and the Radnor Activity Center, Interstate Corporation, for a 3-year contract in the aggregate amount of $407,009.43. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Mulrooney. Second. Second by Commissioner Riley. Mr. Norsini?
Thank you, Madam President. So you summed it up. This is for 3 buildings, each for 3 years, and that is the total for 3 buildings, 3 years, 407,000, 407,007.07. How's that?
Sounds good. This was the lowest bid?
This was the lowest responsible bidder. So there was another bid, lower in number, but they were not responsive to the bid.
Thank you. Any commissioner questions, comments? Yep, go ahead. Commissioner Agnew.
Do we currently have a contract for this work?
Yes, that would be CleanNet. They're the ones that are doing it now.
And what was their fee?
They bid $433,272 and no cents.
No, presently, what are we paying? So we're paying, this is sort of $133,000 a year, say, really. So what are we paying now?
I don't have that information, Commissioner.
If I could, we're in the ballpark of about $120,000 right now per year.
Mm-hmm.
And for additional context, for those, it's been a while, prior to outsourcing this to a third-party company, the township had 1 full-time employee that tried to cover all these areas. That employee left under their own, for their own reasons. So at that time, we decided that the contract was the better way to go. In the end, the cost is pretty neutral between an FTE and the contract.
And are we happy with the work?
Most of the time. This will be a new company, so I can't talk about how we'll be with them. But when we have these conversations internally about whether we want to contract out or come to the board and ask for rehiring the position, we are always happy enough to continue to contract it out, if that helps.
Right. It's just a lot of money to me. That's a lot of money. But I trust that's how it has to go, but it seems like a lot to me. That's all. I clean my own house, so it seems like a lot to me. So. I'll do it for 100,000.
Yeah, she'll do it for 100,000. There you go. All right.
I have to bid that.
Yeah. You have to be a responsible bidder, not just, that's another story. All right. Any further commissioner questions or comments? Any public participation on this issue? Seeing none, let's call a vote on Resolution 2025-67 to approve. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. All right. The next item is 3I, Resolution 2025-68, a resolution of Radnor Township, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, declaring a disaster emergency due to the service impacts on emergency medical services and Radnor Police's social services programs resulting from the closure of the Crozier-Chester Health System. Mr. White, you want to start us out on this?
Thank you, Madam President. So the goal of the resolution is multifaceted. First, for those that have been paying attention, this has been an ongoing issue since the beginning of 2025, or at least an ongoing public discussion since the beginning of 2025. The issue, I think, dates back long before that. I had summarized this current state of affairs in an email back at the end of March. Ultimately, the impact of the closures are a couple. So the health system is losing all of its ambulance corps, or all the ambulance corps that provided service to mostly the southern part of Delaware County are going out of business. Ultimately, the ripple effect of those ambulances no longer being serviced will roll up to the municipalities in the northern end of Delaware County, including Radnor. And what that means is our ambulances will be called into services to areas outside of Radnor Township on an increasing basis, is the forecast of what this impact will be from an EMS side. At the same time, from the Radnor Police side, The closure of the hospital system also meant for our police officers and our CSU unit a lack of resources for mental health emergencies and servicing those residents in need. Separately, I think there's some additional agreements being made, but at the end of the day, it's a further distance for our officers to go. It's less resources for them to respond to and for them to provide service to our residents in need. So what this resolution does is it adds Radnor Township to the list of participating municipalities in Delaware County, recognizing the negative impacts to those services that I just summarized. More functionally, it opens the door to Radnor receiving some sort of future reimbursement should money ever become available, and to the extent we expend funds trying to address these needs. That will not occur unless we're back in front of the board to talk about what the exposure might be. For example, if we find that our service times on the EMS side are lengthening to a point where it's unsatisfactory to us, do we then go and try to contract to fill in those gaps? That additional cost then would be added to this declaration and then presumably become recoverable should FEMA or PEMA have money available at some point down the road. There's no, unlike a major weather event where there's an immediate, like FEMA will come out and say, you're a disaster area, money's available. That does not exist under this set of circumstances yet. So we are out ahead of that, but still it's been recommended that municipalities adopt this resolution to start building, to start capturing expenses and building a case for reimbursement in the future. These resolutions tend to be focused on singular events, which makes them time restrictive. You know, the storm came in, it hit, the storm goes away, and there's a cleanup period. This is a little different in that it's more open-ended. There really is no known solutions out there. So what I would recommend to the board is, at least for an initial 30-day period, if the board is willing to adopt this resolution, enact the disaster declaration, that we would come back then at the second meeting in May, provide an update on service impacts and any kind of material updates that are coming from the health systems and where this situation's headed long term. So that's why the resolution's in front of you tonight. Upon adoption, the police department will enact the emergency management function, which is Sergeant Gluck, as we all learned during the COVID year. So Sergeant Gluck will be enacted in that way and start working with the fire company to receive important information from them in terms of how the ambulance service is being impacted, and we'll also be gathering information from our own CSU unit so that we can report back regularly to the board on how that's going. And then at those times, we can discuss and make recommendation on whether we extend the declaration, we terminate it, or what, any variation thereof. So it's a recommendation to adopt today. We'll come back at the second meeting in May with updates and then decide if we want to continue it from that point going for another set of maybe a month, or if we want to extend it further depending on the circumstances. So that's what's being requested tonight. Thank you.
Quite the description. Do you happen to know if there's a plan for the county as a, Delco as in total to address this at all?
No, that's a really good question. It's something I should have touched on. So Delaware County, they have obviously a lot of resources dedicated to the situation. If you go to the county's health department website, they have a whole page dedicated to all of the different elements that they're working on. I touched on the emergency medical services. They're also dealing with, the patient relocation, all the medical side of the emergency, as well as, the employees that are all losing their jobs and what's going to happen with them, as well as the economic impact to the region. So all of that information is housed on the Delaware County's Health Department website. They offer regular updates. I don't know how public those are. I haven't been to the website for a few days. I don't know if they're posting minutes of those or how those are being disseminated, but there are regular meetings going on. And as I put in the summary back in March, they have a dozen different work groups aimed at very specific tasks that those work groups continue to work on. And at this point, I don't know how to, everyone's working really hard, but there's not a whole lot of solutions yet. And maybe that needs to happen first before solutions
Well, it's a
start.
healthcare shortage. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really devastating to the area, frankly. We'll be much less affected than other areas of Delaware County, but it is the emergency services that we have to worry about. And the mental health care. I mean, I think that, as the chief has brought up in the past, that's a real concern here, that our police shouldn't be out trying to provide mental health transportation to a facility. Commissioner Agnew?
Yeah,
you have something to say?
so Chief, there were 13 mental health calls this month, right? And so when I hear this, I'm worried about, I mean, my understanding is that's a lot, I guess, or that's, she's busy.
Correct.
She's busy. And so this will require more work for Isabel, is that for Ms. Cook?
Well, I think that getting people to the resources is one of the things, and if I could just back out of it, one of the things that the emergency declaration does, and I really like our community to know this, that it's an administrative function now. There's so many times that when we act these, we've received massive damage from a storm, the things Mr. White articulated. We believe that everybody in Radnor is overall very safe. We are anticipating some potential drains, as Mr. White said, forecasted service impacts, which would affect, very importantly, the Radnor Fire Company EMS. But we're going to track that through their records management system, through the Office of Emergency Management here. So we'll stay on top of it. If we have to add ambulances, we're going to do that. We will come up with planning and make sure the impact is lessened as much as possible. One thing I would like to say, again, is we do believe everybody's safe. The majority of the people in this area generally use Philadelphia Region hospitals and, of course, mainline health hospitals for various reasons. So we believe we're going to be in good impact. What I would suggest is everybody at home have a discussion about potentially longer ER impacts and some other things. If you add health care through the Crozier system, it's very important, as Mr. White said, to take a look at their public website, the health department. You can actually call and somebody will tell you, assist you how to get health care. So we believe we're going to be in good shape. In reference to the community service unit, they're gearing up for maybe some more continued follow through. They're also, Isabel Cook, who is our police social worker, is in charge of our mental health programming, because you got to remember, there's a chance we could have 2 mental health calls at the same time or at 4 in the morning. So she's making sure we have best information based on these changes and the new phone numbers. So there's a couple things that are going to be a little bit different, maybe a little bit more cumbersome and a little bit more delayed getting some of those paperwork through. The set plans are not finalized, but we will be ready once they're finalized from the county. Do believe the county's putting their best foot forward to mitigate this strain. And mental health, as I sent to the manager and the president, just was a concern of ours that when you have somebody and you're trying to deal with that situation, getting them to definitive care is our main objective. If you increase those times, you have a better chance of something going wrong, and we just want to try and avoid that. But with our records management system, Radnor Fire Company's detailed record management system, we'll be able to give you guys reports. And the Office of Emergency Management will be sending them to the township managers. You can disseminate them as needed. In the same breath, it could barely affect us at all, and that'll be the greatest news that we could hear. And of course, the people who lost their jobs, our hearts go out to them. And I know the county is working on getting them placement in other healthcare facilities.
Thank you very much. If there's any role you see for the Radnor Board of Health to be involved in this, let me know.
Thank you, Commissioners. Just note, Commissioner Agnew did ask about the mental health. We did add that to the chief's report at her request, so you'll just see that new addition. So knowing this crisis was coming on, all that lined up, and we got it done. So we'll be able to keep stats and keep you informed of what's happening monthly.
Thank you, Commissioner Agnew, and thank you, Chief. Any questions, comments? Any public participation on this? Seeing none, I'm going to call a vote on Resolution 2025-68. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous, with Commissioner Larkin off the podium. We have reports of board liaisons. Anyone? Go ahead.
Couple of things. So I'm liaison to the Radnor Fire Company. I think, to this conversation, it's something that they are working very closely with, keeping a very close eye on, and I know working closely with you. So I just wanted to report that out, that this is a top of mind issue for Radnor Fire. It's not my committee, and Director Cohen's not here, but I was at Wheels of Wayne this weekend with my car and my husband's motorcycle, not winning any of we didn't place, but we had a really great time. I just wanted to commend the police department and the Parks and Rec department and Public Works and everybody who comes together to make that event possible. It's one of the events that draws people from so far away from Radnor, because car enthusiasts will go anywhere to show off their cars and see everybody else's cars. So it really just puts a beautiful spotlight on our township, and I just want to call out my appreciation for it, because I have a really good time every year. So those are my reports. Thanks.
Any further board liaison reports?
The Environmental Advisory Council had their planned giveaway this weekend. I think it went very well. Hopefully we'll see a lot of native plants blooming around the township. And they're beginning a very extensive lecture series. So you can see that on the website. There we are.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the lecture series. The climate change one is tomorrow, Tuesday at 6 p.m. here.
Thank you. All right. Any new business? Any old business? Any final public participation? All right, seeing none, could I have a motion to adjourn? So moved by Commissioner Mulroney, a second. By Commissioner Agnew. We're adjourned. I guess I should have gotten a vote.
Yes.
Everybody's.